Lieutenant General retired Syed Hasnain. Retired Indian Army General Syed Hasnain is a highly decorated military officer with PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM Bar and VSM Bar to his name. During the course of his service, he participated in Operation Pawan in Sri Lanka, took part in counter-insurgency operations in Punjab, and also served with the UN in Mozambique. As General Officer commanding GOC of 15 Corps, he played a key role in bringing the Army closer to the common citizen. His unique approach, playing friend, not God, has been widely appreciated as the new HR management mantra. Ladies and gentlemen, a salute and a warm welcome to Lieutenant General retired Syed Hasnain.
Friends, it's a great privilege for us to have somebody from the Army who has created history in the teeth of all kind of oppositions, whether it be political, social, or otherwise. General Sahab has been able to work out a way by which he was able to appease the populace and take care in such a way that the name of India remains shining all the time. Such a personality who can tell us all about Jammu and Kashmir, who can tell us about how the military strength of India is moving forward, and who will instill faith and pride in us again, that we as Indians are second to none. Such a personality being with us, I very humbly now invite General Sahab, the one and only General Syed Hussain Sahab, to speak to us. Sir.
Can you hear me at the back? Can you hear me there? Can you hear me on top there? Are you audible in the middle out here? Can you understand what I'm saying? It shouldn't be as if I'm only speaking and you're not listening. Everyone is audible to everyone. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm scared. Actually, I was sitting on the stage just now, and when the AV started, the whole stage started vibrating. It made me very aware suddenly. I was almost at home, because to me it sounded like an artillery barrage. You know, when an artillery barrage lands on top of you, the earth shakes below you. And that is the time when an army man feels most at home. So I'm most at home here today. And before I begin anything, I have a very long introduction before I begin anything. Let me first of all pay obeisance to all those who have gone before me here on the stage. Icons in their own right. Every one of them. Outstanding talks that we heard yesterday and today. I bow my head to all of them. Secondly, I also wish to start by paying obeisance to all those people who are sitting in the back there. You are the generation which will take our nation forward. We may have failed. We may not have fully succeeded. We tried our best. We took it up to a stage. We are leaving it for you. And I have the fullest confidence that you, the young generation of India, is going to make this nation great. I have a PowerPoint also on shortly. There's a lot of text on that which will come. Don't bother about it too much. Listen to what I have to say. It'll be related to some of the things which will be appearing on the slides, but don't bother too much about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to tell you, I come from a divided family. This nation has given me so much. You just saw 6 decorations from the President of India, 2 decorations from the Chief of the Army Staff. When added to my father's decorations, who was also a soldier, between us we have 10 decorations from the nation. We are the only family in the country which has got 10 decorations from the nation. The nation has given me so much. It's given my family so much. Which is why it's important for you to know what kind of a family do we have. I'm a second generation soldier. My father was also a general. In 1947, when the partition of India took place, he was at Lahore station as a captain, the adjutant of 1st Garhwal Rifles. When his British commanding officer asked him, he said, "Son, you are a Muslim. What is your choice? Are you going to join Pakistan or are you going to join India?" And my father turned on and told him, "This is my nation. I belong here." And he came along with a train, protecting thousands of Sikh and Hindu refugees, and brought them to Delhi. And from there, he had to go back to Pakistan because my mother, they were not married at that time, my mother had migrated to Pakistan. And my father had to fly to Pakistan to marry her and bring her back. Thereafter, we have never looked at Pakistan. Which is the reason why can I have the PowerPoint on, please? Sorry. Can I have the PowerPoint? Yeah. Which is why I always start with a salute to my nation. And I always want to wish my audience, Jai Hind. That's not loud enough for the army. Can I have it once again? Jai Hind. This is what one expects from Indore. This is the greatness of Indore. This is all for my nation. A salute to my nation. And a salute to my great army. The army to which my father and I have belonged for 75 years. And therefore, when I salute my nation and when I salute my army, at the same time, I can never forget the people who have died for this nation. The martyrs of our nation, many of them who have gone to their death on my orders. Working the talk in leadership means that the ultimate sacrifice. The ultimate sacrifice, which is what my profession is all about. The ultimate sacrifice. But here, I'm here to speak to you about working the talk, leadership aspects, internal security, and what have you. But before that, let me tell you that when my parents got married in 1948, the first station to which they had the honor to come was Mau, Indore. This is where my elder brother was born. I was not fortunate to have been born here. That is why I had to keep coming back to Indore to take ownership of it. And that is why this relationship with this region, with Mau, with Indore has always remained a part of our lives. Indore हमारे खून के अंदर है, बसा हुआ है. As infantrymen, as soldiers, all of us have to keep coming back to Mau from time to time. And that is our essential relationship with Mau. But therefore, speaking about myself all this time is not important. It's important to speak about Indore. See this, one of the greatest success stories among cities in India. And day before yesterday night, at the great dinner that we had at the Delhi College, I was analyzing it for someone, and I was saying, what is great about Indore? Perhaps you don't realize it. You need someone to come and tell you about it. What is great about Indore? It's the cross-pollination of cultures, the outstanding business models of the Marwari community, the outstanding commercial capabilities of the Gujarati community, the outstanding valor of the Marathas from Maharashtra. After all, this is Holkar's territory. The great martial traditions from Rajasthan, which have come here. And of course, Indore belongs to Madhya Pradesh. The cross-pollination of cultures together to make a city a center of excellence has not appeared anywhere else on the map of this country except Indore. You don't realize it. It needs us to come and tell you this. You have created centers of excellence here. Before that, of course, you got to also remember that Mau is a part of Indore. This is the birthplace of Dr. Ambedkar, who gave this great movement to India, the Constitution of India. And therefore, when we talk of Indore, we talk of centers of excellence. You're the only city with an IIM. You're the only city which has got what else have you got? The IIM and the IIT together. You have thousands of centers of learning here. You have the most outstanding institutions of medicine out here. And education. Education, medicine, management, 3 hubs which we've got here. But I have a gila shikwa against Indore. I have a complaint against the city of Indore. You have forgotten that before you created the 3 centers of excellence, 3 centers of excellence existed in Mau, which belonged to the Indian Army. The Army War College, the Infantry School, and the Military College of Telecommunication Engineering. Let me acknowledge that one of the commandants is sitting here. General Gurdeep Singh is the commandant of the Infantry School who is sitting here, my colleague and my friend. This is the cross-pollination which is required, is to go further now, where the centers of excellence of Indore have to pollinate with the centers of excellence of Mau. And that will create the most outstanding model you can find anywhere in the country. So, with all this about Mau, about Indore, let me tell you something else. You have great ambitions for your city, rightfully so. But remember, without peace and stability, you are going nowhere. Every morning you get up and go to your offices, to your institutions happily, because you know you're secure. There's someone giving you security, internal or external. But don't take that for granted. Because that security may not be there forever. There may be lots of mistakes which we are making. If you're not secure, how are you going to work towards continuing this process of making your city into a center of excellence? In our nation, we have an unfortunate tendency to take our security for granted. That is primarily because we don't have a strategic culture in our country. All of you who are studying subjects of management, diverse subjects of management in your great institutions, you are focused, no doubt, but remember, outside that focus, there is much more. There is much more knowledge which is there, which will help you to make your country more secure. We'll talk about it. Therefore, this was all a preliminary. This is all about working the talk. I'm going to give you examples. I was asked initially to come and speak on a subject such as this, but subsequently it was converted into a valedictory address. And when I saw that I had to go to Wikipedia to actually understand the meaning of a valedictory address, and I realized in a valedictory address, you also have got to talk about motivation. You got to talk about recognition. So I metamorphosized both these things together into this talk. We're going to talk about internal security challenges. Remember, as I already said, progress is what you're looking for. Economics gives you progress. Social sciences give you progress. But remember, if you are not secure, that progress cannot be taken for granted. So the prologue which I wish to tell you, remember, all these words are very familiar to you. Terror, insurgency, separatism, proxy war, sectarian conflict. आप सुनते रहते हैं ये बातें. You read them in the newspapers every day. Perhaps no one has come down to speak to you about these. How do they affect you? You say, हो रहा होगा. It may be happening in Kashmir. It may be happening in Nagaland. It may be happening on the borders. It may be happening in the Maoist areas, insurgency areas of Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. How does it affect me? I'm not affected by it. I'm a common Indore citizen. Let me tell you, it affects you. It affects every one of you. That realization has to come, how it affects you. It is not necessary to define all this. Not important at all. As long as you broadly understand that violence against the authority of the state is what constitutes an internal security situation. And why does violence come about? What is the theory of violence? Have you ever tried to give it a glance as to what is violence and why does it come about? You see, society has got spaces. These spaces are filled by different segments. Resources of the world are insufficient to satisfy every segment of society. And therefore, at every time, every juncture in history, societies are always jostling with each other for that space. When they find that they cannot get that space, which they are looking for their communities, it leads to violence. And violence is the one thing which prevents all progress. This is the most important thing to remember. If you take back a lesson, for every man, if there's a chicken, murga, if there's a chicken in the pot, in your cooking pot, and if there's a car in the garage, you will never have violence. You will never have violence in society. Everyone will have a quality of life which he is looking forward to. But because that murga is not there, because that car is not there, but there are people aspiring to have it and are not achieving it, this is what leads to violence. And we'll talk about it as we go along. Remember, as essentials of internal security, a nation is secure when its citizens can continue to work for development unimpeded by threats. You have unimpeded work which is carrying on, no threats to your existence, you are secure. A nation is even more secure when it can progress towards attainment of its national aim without threats. Any factor which tends to impede the advancement of a nation and its achievement of its national aim should be considered a threat. Koi bhi cheez ho. If there is violence going on in the city of Indore, and for 7 days you have not been able to go from your workplace to your office, it has impeded your progress. If this carries on, take an example, in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, 2008, 2009, 2010, 3 years the state was paralyzed by violence. Civil disobedience, stone throwing, street protests. The situation was such that the Tata Sumo unions, the drivers, could not even pay their EMIs. No insurance company was willing to come and insure a Tata Sumo taxi. That was the state. And that was impeding your progress. So obviously it was a major threat to a state and therefore a threat to your nation. One second, let me just lubricate my throat a little bit. That was an example of the state of Jammu and Kashmir and how violence can affect you. Now, what are the conditions which support the onset of internal security problems? When we are talking of internal security, it is primarily within the borders of the country. Look at some of these. Any developing country will have this problem because the have and have not gap will be very high. The have-nots will be always aspiring, and the haves will continue to progress. So you will have this gap which is continuing. You have to make sure that this gap does not become wider. Heterogeneous composition. Can there be a nation more heterogeneous than ours? every culture, every community, every creed, every faith we have here. From the tribes of the Bastar region to the northeastern areas, to the population in Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir, to the population down in Tamil Nadu or in Kerala. Everyone, there is diversity in our nation. We always talk about unity in diversity. But while that notion is alive, you must remember that you are always open to threats because of your multi-heterogeneous nature. Any political issues which can be exploited. Simple things like the Gujar agitation in Delhi and Haryana. It impeded progress of that area for a good 1 to 2 years. Destruction of property, all kinds of things which happened. And very importantly, an animostic neighborhood. The subcontinent is called Indo-centric. Everything is based on India. You have Bangladesh, but you got an affinity with the Bengalis of Bangladesh. You have an affinity with Nepal. You have an affinity with Myanmar, with Pakistan, with Sri Lanka. So you are the center. And the problems of everyone else are exported to you. When you have a war in Sri Lanka, an internal war in Sri Lanka, doesn't it affect you? When you have a war going on, internal war going on in Bangladesh, it affects you. If you have problems in Jammu and Kashmir, it gets exploited like a proxy war by Pakistan. So it can be all this can be exploited. If you have iconic leadership among the disparate groups in any of the regions who wish to have, breakaway tendencies, ideology and cause, and the most important is subnational identity. A subnational identity. For example, in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, or among all the 5, 6 states of Assam, a subnational identity looking for existence on their own. All this causes threats to you. And a deep-hearted angst multiplied by a very shoddy response which comes about sometimes, and terrain is a major added factor. Why is this problem, have you ever considered, from Jharkhand till Andhra Pradesh, why are you having this huge Maoist problem? If you didn't have jungle tracks all along, perhaps this problem would not have been accentuated to the extent that it has. So terrain is a major factor. This terrain in Jammu and Kashmir assists infiltration from the other side. So all this leads to problems. Very brief explanation. When you look at conflict, when you look at war, this is for you to understand very briefly. Remember, on one end you have high-end conflict. When you have conventional war, India, China, India, Pakistan, it can even go to nuclear war. It is high-end. On the other hand, you have LICO, low-intensity conflict operations. The most difficult thing here is to identify where is the conflict which you are in. What type of a conflict are you in? Are you in a mid-intensity, low-intensity, and within low-intensity, where are you? Most of the conflicts of the world today are low-intensity. Most of the conflicts today are about development. Most of the conflicts today are about social issues. Low-level conflict is all about economics. It's all about sociology. It's all about development. It's all about aspirations. There is nothing military about it. Everyone says military ladti hai. They fight, the army fights. There's nothing to do with us. Low-intensity conflict is created by society. But when everything goes wrong, then you call us in as the last factors, the last resort to resolve it for you. And you have problems like Kashmir, where 24 years we have been fighting. We had problems in Nagaland, for 50 years we fought almost, right? But the army always remains as your last resort. Very important thing which most people will never explain to you. The Constitution of India provides to you something called public order and law and order. Law and order is your everyday problem here. Koi marpeet ho gayi, chori ho gayi, there's that little bit of turbulence in society. Gujar agitation is about law and order. Law and order is something which may affect your daily life, but does not affect the integrity of the nation. Public order is something which affects the integrity of the nation. And you must remember that public order is an army issue, it's an armed forces issue. State of Jammu and Kashmir was in a public order situation, which is why the army was called. Law and order is controlled by the local police forces or the central police forces. This is something which most people never understand about internal security. Brief example of how this is handled, how this kind of a violence is handled. Now, if you've got separatist tendencies, trends in one part of the country, for example, model in Kashmir, you will always find a panic button response. First of all, we gave the trigger in 1987 by some problems of elections, etc. In 1989, when you suddenly found violence coming up in Kashmir and infiltration and proxy war being supported by Pakistan, there was a panic button response. When you have panic button response, you tend to make mistakes. And everything goes awry. Then you have employment of hard power. Everyone thinks, most common citizens think that if you have violence in some place, call in the military, call in the army, use violence and put it down. And you'll have peace. You couldn't be further from the truth. Violence begets violence. Remember that. The army will come. It will kill terrorists, militants, anything you want. But it can't resolve your problem. It can't. Because it only has majorly soft power, hard power. It can do other things, we'll talk about it. What most people ignore, everyone thinks that to go into a conflict, into a war situation, you need to understand the ground, the terrain, zameen ki samajh. Most people don't understand that more important than ground is to understand the cultural terrain. To understand the culture, the sensitivities of that population. You imagine if the army has to suddenly one day come into Indore and start using weapons and dandas and things like that. But we don't understand the cultural sensitivities of this population here. Can we ever succeed? No, we cannot. For every terrorist that the army kills, you create 5 more terrorists. And that has to be softened through the use of what is called soft power. Treating it like a military issue. The moment you start treating violence, internal violence, as a military issue, you have lost the game. And this is exactly what has happened in Kashmir till now. In Kashmir, 24 years of violence has gone on. Right? Proxy war from across the border. Infiltration, internal insurgency and terrorism, street protests, everything. Every time something has happened, we have used the weapon. We have killed terrorists. We have counted numbers. And we have brought the situation to a particular state. From there, it is important that someone must be able to take it on and use development and economics, social issues to calm the society and then look for a solution. When you have no one doing it, when you have no agency doing it, then you have only one agency which can do it, and that is the army. Dr. Verma just spoke about the heart is my weapon doctrine in Kashmir. We used the heart is my weapon doctrine primarily because there was no one else to come and take on the heart doctrine. Our whole thing was dil se. We are here not to kill you. We are here to ensure the progress of your state. All those who are enemies of the state, they are our enemies. We will put them down. But society must carry on. And for making the society carry on, you have to use soft power. Which means you have to understand the cultural terrain. Which basically means you have to understand how to deal with the population. In Kashmir, for example, one of the major complaints which a Kashmiri citizen has always had was that for the last 20 years, a family moving in a new Santro car. These days, of course, Indore has got new Audis and new Mercedes and new Jaguars. But think of Kashmir, a new Santro car with a family and someone going for a visit. En route, you are checked by a military checkpoint. Someone who comes with a danda and thrashes your bonnet and tells your family to get down and abuses your children and your wife. Think of yourself in this city of Indore. Evening time, you are going out to Sarafa. You are going out to Chapan Dukan to eat the fantastic delicacies of Indore, right? And en route, you come to a checkpoint and someone tells you in the choicest of abuse to get down. How would you feel? Your self-esteem in front of your family, how do you feel? We have brought Kashmir to a stage where we can be more sensitive with the population. And this is what the hard doctrine was all about. How to be sensitive to the population and how to make amends for the mistakes that we may have made while we were using hard power. You see, when you use military methods alone, then what it leads to is antipathy, anger, angst. The population starts supporting the terrorists. There's a numbers game which carries on. And this is not something which is conducive to success. You see how these situations get more and more accentuated. You have a trust deficit. You have a lack of a clear-cut aim. Now in Kashmir, for example, can anyone tell me, did we as a nation ever have an aim? Army ko bataya, jao, terrorists maar do. Terrorists marne se situation nahi jati. Take it again from me. Your national aim in Kashmir should have been to integrate the state of Jammu and Kashmir with the mainstream India. Bas. Itna hai aapka aim. Usse aap nikal lo hazaron cheezein. To integrate the state of Jammu and Kashmir with the rest of India. If the Kashmiris are feeling alienated, we have to make sure that that alienation is done away with and they feel as a part of India. That will give us the final victory. Nahi to akhbaron mein aati hai na, we have won the war. No war has been won. And you are not fighting your own population in a war. This is a low intensity conflict situation. This is when you come to these situations of violence, it is tailor-made. It is tailor-made for those stakeholders. Many people have stakes in the violence of that particular region. When violence exists in a society, you will find violence becomes a business. And I'm talking to one of the greatest business communities of India. Do you know that in United Kingdom, and I have a lot of people from the United Kingdom here, do you know that in Great Britain and in the United Kingdom, they had a problem with Ireland, Northern Ireland, for years and years. I wonder if you're aware of it. I went back to visit Northern Ireland in 2006, and I questioned people, how did you resolve this problem? They said, economics. Economics. If you go to Belfast, you go to Ulster, you will find everywhere. It is economics which is playing its role. Making sure that every man has got a chicken in his pot and a car in his garage. And that's how they resolve their problem. In this, you'll always find an intelligence game. And you'll wonder. In India, we have many situations. Mumbai 26/11 ho gaya. Or many other terrorist strikes in India. Everyone always says intelligence failure. What is the meaning of intelligence? And what is the meaning of intelligence failure? Intelligence is all about estimating and looking at the future and saying, this can happen. You can never be 100% right. Today you have technology which helps you in gaining intelligence. Right? Intelligence is one of the most important things in this whole game. And all of you are part of intelligence. You don't have to have only specialized agencies to do it. All of you are intelligence agents. All of you are keeping your eyes and ears open. If you know something is happening here and there, you are duty bound to report and inform. And inform in time. Intelligence game ke andar delay is catastrophic. 26/11 ke baare mein, a lot of people say that the intelligence was available, but it was never given on time. And that is why the terrorists, 10 terrorists, could hold the whole city of Mumbai to ransom. Media, one of the most important factors in the control of violence and internal security. It's a powerful tool for communication, remember. It's an instrument for human rights. And sometimes it can be a very positive instrument to take on board. Now you have people from the media here, lots of them, who are reporting, as long as truthful reporting is done. Now in Kashmir we have 26 English newspapers. Are you aware that Indore mein nahi hai 26 akhbar? In Srinagar we have 26 English newspapers who are reporting day and night. And they become such an important instrument in voicing concerns and projecting what the population wants and what the state wants. This is a media which actually acts as the intermedia between the population and the state. And then you have all kinds of leadership challenges. You can't do nation building with guns pointed at each other. The moment you have guns pointed at each other, you can't do nation building at all. The more important thing in this is violence. Everyone thinks that violence can only be countered by violence, as I explained to you. And most people think that soldiers have got their brains in their heels. Most people think that जवानों का, अफसरों का, सिपाहियों का जो दिमाग है, वो तो उनके घुटने के नीचे होता है. Right? Not realizing that this subject is one of the most complex subjects. Violence is one of the most complex subjects. To understand this, you have to read so much, you have to experience so much. That is so much important, and that is why you have to take an intellectual approach to it. If you don't have an intellectual approach to sorting out violence, you can never succeed. The most important thing for us is national integrity. You can do anything as long as national integrity is our aim. And there are domains for leadership, all kinds of domains: diplomatic, economic, social, military, psychological. The one thing which I want to tell you about is that take a lesson from here, from the military. There are no black and white situations which exist when you're dealing with violence. Everything is in the shades of gray. Let me give you an example. You know, in Kashmir at one time, 5-6 years ago, I was commanding a division, and line of control ke upar, I was visiting, and at a particular place I asked my men, I said, line of control is 500 meters from here, how often do you go up till there? They said, hum nahi jate wahan firing hoti hai. I said, no, if you are not patrolling that area, it means willy-nilly to Pakistan ko de diya humne. So please go back, establish a small post there and dominate that area. Now we were in a state of ceasefire, as you are even today. You're not expected to fire back or things like that. There are wishy-washy orders about reacting, right? But 2-3 days later, I learned that the post had been established. One fine afternoon, I get a message saying that, you know, our adversary, they have 15 soldiers have come across the line of control, झंडा लेकर आए हैं, हथियार भी टांगे हुए हैं, and वो हमको हमारे पेट्रोल को उन्होंने घेर लिया है और कह रहे हैं कि तुम निकलो यहां से, नहीं तो हमारे साथ मुजफ्फराबाद चलो. Now this report came to me. How do you deal with a situation like this? Now this is a situation of violence on the line of control. How do you deal with a situation like this? The way you're trained. Sure enough, तू मैं हुई. Line of control pe tu मैं बहुत होती है. And someone fired. The adversary fired first and killed one of my soldiers. And his body fell on the other side. But my soldiers were very alert. They fired back immediately. It all happened within 30 meters. And they killed 7 people of the adversary, who all fell on the other side. But the story does not end there. The story does not end there. शाम हो गई, 6 बज गए, अंधेरा होने लगा. And the commanding officer asked me, what do I do, sir? I said, now I can step in. You should move to the spot and ensure the body of our soldier is secure. No weapon of the Indian Army can be taken away by our enemy or our adversary. This commanding officer was an outstandingly physically fit colonel who almost ran 1.5 hours at a height of 12,000 feet and reached the spot and told me from there, I am here now, sir, and I will secure that area. He secured the area. He secured the area, brought the body back. And then he told me at 9:30 at night, he rang me up to ask me, what are my orders? I said, you are again trained for it. Remember, I am not looking over my shoulder for any orders from anyone. Your orders are on the line of control, every adversary post which exists on the other side. I don't want to see it existing tomorrow morning. I don't want to see it existing. But you will not cross the line of control. ऐसे हुक्म मिलते हैं लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल पे, क्या आप पार भी नहीं करेंगे मगर तब भी बर्बाद करेंगे? कैसे करें? पार भी ना करें और बर्बाद भी ना करें? How can you do this? And I went to sleep at 9:30. Walking the talk in leadership is that. You don't have to be on your subordinates' head. You have to have the trust in your subordinates. They are trained for it. In the morning at 6:30 I got a report, and at 7:30 I had a photograph faxed to me. 4 of the posts out there did not exist. They had been razed to the ground by firing only from our side. And then people ask me questions from behind. How did all this happen? I said, don't ask me questions. It was a situation in which I was responsible. Jawabdari meri hai. I have given the orders. I am not looking for black and white. Ye pura area grey ka hai. This is the domain of grey. Let me choose the option which I will adopt. And that is how we reacted. Do you know what the situation after that was? The next day, our adversary's brigade commander, a helicopter came from across the mountains in the afternoon. The commander was removed from command. He was put into the helicopter and taken away, which meant total victory for us. That's what it was about. So I thought I must relate to you. Working the talk is not just about talking all of this on paper. Zameen ke upar, jab the situation demands decision, decisiveness, you have to know what your responsibility is. And the moment you start looking over your shoulder to the next superior, कि मुझे बताओ क्या करना है, then you are not a leader. Sorry, you are not a leader. Similarly, military leadership challenges. Aim is very important. The importance is the second bullet, comprehensive approach. You can't just only say, मैं मारूंगा, मैं काटूंगा, मैं खत्म कर दूंगा. No. इस साल हमने 600 terrorists मार दिए. No, it's not important. No doubt it's important that you have killed so many terrorists. One complaint in the army everyone has got is we play the numbers game. जो आदमी आता है पूछता है कितने मारे? You know, it's like that Sholay dialogue. कितने बंदे मारे? Remember the famous Sholay Gabbar Singh dialogue जो है? Is everyone likes to ask that dialogue. कितने बंदे मारे? For me, I was told, General Saab, can you change this philosophy? And I have General Gurdeep sitting here who will probably certify for me that together in Kashmir, we changed the narrative. It's called changing the narrative. We said we will never ask our men kitne bande mare. Tum marte to rahenge. We will say, we will ask our officers, how many young Kashmiris have you recruited to the Indian Army, Police, BSF, CRPF? Because that will help us integrate. I will ask them, आपने कितने medical camp conduct किए यहाँ पर, and how many old and young and middle-aged women have you treated? Because remember, women in society, and this is a message to all the women and all the young girls here, conflict ke andar, the role of the woman is the most important. Let me tell you this, because no one will tell you this. जो औरत का जो role होता है is the most important role. Why? The simple reason for it is, the woman is the mother. She is the sister. She is the daughter. She is the daughter-in-law. She is the one who holds the family together. If there are two angry young men who want to become terrorists, It is the mother, the sister, the bhabhi who will control the anger of those men. And that is why it is important to empower your women all the time. Have the women ever realized this? What role you play in society? You are the family. Unless you provide that bond to the family goes astray. Which is why I wanted to bring this out. That for us in the army, it became a major task and a major responsibility how to empower the women of Kashmir. Let me talk about more. Education. You see, education, military education has to absorb all this. If you go to Mau, you will hear the sound of firing. Thai ho raha hai har taraf, mortar gir rahe hain, bomb gir rahe hain, all kinds of things. That is all part of training. All part of training. But we have something beyond training. And what is that? It's called education. Now you will wonder, ये training और education के बीच में फर्क क्या है? एक ही चीज तो है. Sorry. Training is only training your skills. You then function as you're trained. But you have, when you are educated, your mind works. Innovations come. You look at fresh ways of doing things. That is the importance of education. We not talk about human rights, but remember that human rights is a very important aspect, and you can see women. This photograph depicts women and about human rights. These are the basic problems of India in countering these internal security issues. And the only thing to which I need to refer is the last thing, Maoist insurgency. And remember, in Madhya Pradesh, you are also affected by it. This is a classic case of an anticipated problem which was allowed to go. Ye 1968 se chal raha hai, Naxalite problem. It's all a development issue. Not enough succor reaching the tribal people, the downtrodden people. Unless you move into rural India and do something for them, this problem will continue. So what are the lessons you can take from the army? A few of the lessons. Sociology remains a very important subject. Don't think sociology is not an important subject. Culture sensitivity and respect for diversity. Let me tell you what kind of a human being I am. At the cost of a little time, what kind of a human being am I? I was born a Muslim. I was born a Muslim. I was educated as a Christian because I studied in the two most outstanding institutions of India. Sherwood College, Nainital, the same school from which Amitabh Bachchan comes, and St. Stephen's College, Delhi. I had a Christian upbringing. When I got commissioned, I joined my father's regiment and unit. The regiment is called the Garhwal Rifles. Pure Hindu troops. I was the only Muslim in my unit. मैंने 40 साल तक कीर्तन किया है हर संडे, हर इतवार को कीर्तन किया है. Let me tell you that. And to top it all, my parents' best friends, my most outstanding friends in my life, have all been from the Sikh community. So you see, the diversity of 4 faiths is all in me. Which is why that is why I salute my nation. Comprehensive leadership, talking about nation building and patriotism. Patriotism is a part of us, is a part of the army. You are essentially patriotic. All of you are patriotic. The only thing is, you need a trigger to get that feelings inside you, that passion inside you. Everything that you are doing is contributing to the nation. आप पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं, आप कामकाज कर रहे हैं, somewhere or the other you are contributing to the nation. You are essentially patriotic. What you have to be conscious about is what role you play in the future of your country. The last part here is an important aspect which I thought I'll just explain to you. Beside the heart doctrine, or the heart is my weapon doctrine, play friend not God is a typical doctrine for HR management. You know, in the army, our human resource management is all done, used to be done from a parent to child approach. Which means, I'm okay, you're not okay. The HR managers, and this is everywhere in the country, in the corporates too, I'm very sure, where the HR managers are always God. They know everything what is good for you. How much pay rise you must get, what kind of an appraisal you should be getting, what promotions you should be getting. Everything is based upon your HR managers. Similarly in the army. My last appointment in the army was the military secretary. I was looking after probably the largest HR management of the officer cadre anywhere in the country. I had 40,000 officers to look after. And my first reaction on taking the job was, if in HR, if we play God all the time, then we'll never have an interaction with the people who we are managing. So I evolved a small philosophy. It's called play friend, not God. And this became the mantra of my organization. And you should have seen the smiles on the faces of officers which we could achieve. Ultimately, what is an HR manager? If he cannot achieve a smile on the face of his clientele, then he's not an HR manager at all. So I thought I must explain this to you. This is one of the lessons you can take from the army and perhaps study it in more detail. And a last bit of advice, have a passion for life, for innovation, for enterprise, learning, give recognition and empathy. Two very important words in HR management. In leadership, empathy and recognition. Many organizations you will find who like to give on their annual day 1 prize, 2 prizes or 3 prizes. I come from an institution, my school taught me one thing, every man deserves a prize. There's something lurking inside every man. Motivate him, give him a prize. And this is my philosophy in life. You just saw the manner in which every young person who walked in and took a prize from me. What did I do to him? I said compliments. I didn't give him a handshake alone. I put a hand on his shoulder. This hand on the shoulder approach is a very important aspect in life. Very, very important aspect in life. Handshakes are, they don't convey the passion and the feelings and the empathy. A hand on the shoulder is something different. One more mantra which you could try, a mantra which I sold out to an organization in Mumbai last year. It's called 10 handshakes a day. 10 handshakes a day. 10 लोगों के साथ आप हाथ मिलाएं. You know, the most innocuous people in your life with whom you will never shake hands. Tonight, when you go back with your chauffeur, shake hands and thank him for having driven you so well the day today. And see the effect on him the next morning. You will find all of us are so much into ourselves that we fail to give recognition and have empathy for others. Your problem is my problem. The moment you tell me your problem, it is my problem. That is the empathy that we have to look for. You can make 365 mistakes in a year, as long as you don't repeat them. And mistakes by intent are different to other mistakes. As long as you're not making your mistakes by intent. Please make mistakes, and you must learn from those mistakes. A very important lesson which I want to leave behind for my audience. You are a hub of excellence. But remember, you are an urban center. The progress of India, the future of India does not lie alone in the urban centers of India. It lies in rural India. Yeah, thank you. They lie in rural India. Take inspiration from the idea of India. As I started in the beginning, the youth is the greatest asset. You are the greatest asset. Passionate, ambitious, enterprising. Just ensure that in everything that you do, the nation comes first. Always and every time. I'm coming to the last part of my talk, and I therefore need to just outline this to you. Remember that the military profession was designed to deal with external violence. External violence, border-based. And that is where we are most comfortable. LOC pe laga do, LAC pe laga do, we are most comfortable. Social conflicts, however, in India are a greater threat to the nation. That is the message which I want to give to you. In India, people don't realize it. They think the security of your country lies on the borders. It does not. The security of your country lies within. The social aspects are a much greater threat to your nation. Citizens and soldiers have to work together to prevent such conflicts, and if they do occur, to resolve them with the least violence and with more soft power. It is our responsibility to keep you safe. It is the Army's responsibility to keep you safe. And the Indian Army, on behalf of the Indian Army, the uniformed community of India, I vow that we will keep you safe till our last drop of blood. What we demand from you only is one thing. Trust us. Trust your army. You will find thousands of reports in media about corruption in the armed forces and this, that. It's all a part of any organization. The heart of your army is still strong. Trust your army. Why should you trust your army? Because it's your army. You have no other army. You have no other army. And therefore, I take a promise from you today, an unwritten promise from all of you. In every presentation that you give in your career, don't end with thank you, end with Jai Hind. That brings me to the end. I wish to thank the Indore Management Association for this invitation. I've overshot my time, but I think I could manage to convey a message, a passion to you. And I think on behalf of the uniformed community, I could actually connect Dil se.